We live in an age of artificial intelligence, supercomputers, precision robotics, and machines capable of manufacturing objects down to microscopic tolerances. So you might assume there's almost nothing ancient engineers could build that we can reproduce today. But history tells a different story. Across the ancient world, people created concrete that could survive for thousands of years, stone walls that could withstand powerful earthquakes, weapons whose exact manufacture remains uncertain, and massive monuments built with astonishing precision, using tools that seem incredibly simple by modern standards. The strange part isn't that we don't understand these technologies. In many cases, we do. The strange part is that understanding the basic method isn't always enough to reproduce the exact result. Because sometimes what disappears isn't the machine, it's the knowledge, the craftsmanship, and the generations of experience behind it. Today, we're exploring 11 ancient technologies and techniques that modern researchers can study but still cannot fully recreate in the same way. Number 11. Roman concrete. Imagine building a concrete harbor wall, then leaving it in seawater for 2,000 years. You might expect it to slowly crumble. But some Roman maritime structures did something remarkable. They survived. And researchers have discovered that certain ancient Roman concretes contain mineral features that can actually help seal cracks when water enters the material. One important discovery involved tiny lime-rich inclusions. When cracks form and water enters, chemical reactions involving these materials can contribute to the formation of new minerals that fill the cracks. In other words, the concrete can partially repair itself. Modern concrete can be engineered to be extremely strong and durable, but reproducing the exact combination of ancient materials, manufacturing methods, and long-term self-healing behavior at large scale remains a challenge. The Romans didn't have modern laboratories. They didn't have computer simulations. They didn't have advanced material science. Yet somehow, some of their concrete has survived for nearly 2,000 years. Number 10. Inca stone masonry. Now travel thousands of kilometers away to the mountains of Peru, and you'll find walls built from enormous stones fitted together with extraordinary precision. Some are irregularly shaped, some weigh several tons, and many were constructed without mortar. The stones interlock almost like pieces of a gigantic puzzle. This wasn't simply about making a wall look impressive. The construction also helped structures cope with seismic activity. Researchers have studied Inca masonry and its structural behavior, including its ability to accommodate movement during earthquakes. We have reasonable ideas about how the stones could have been shaped: repeated carving, abrasion, test fitting, and enormous amounts of patience. But there is a difference between knowing how something can be done and recreating the entire system at full scale. The tools, the workforce, the craftsmanship, the years of experience, that's the part that's much harder to reproduce. Number 9. The precision of Giza. Few ancient structures are more famous than the Great Pyramid of Giza, and we've learned a great deal about how the Egyptians could have built it. But one question continues to fascinate researchers. How did ancient craftsmen achieve such remarkable precision across such an enormous construction project? The Egyptians didn't have diamond saws, or did they? They didn't have laser levels, or did they? They didn't have computer-controlled machinery, yet some of their surviving stonework demonstrates impressive accuracy. The challenge isn't necessarily cutting one stone precisely. Modern machinery can do that easily. The real challenge is imagining that precision being repeated again and again. And then there's the logistics: quarrying stone, transporting it, raising it, positioning it, and coordinating thousands of workers over decades. We can produce individual parts of the process, but reconstructing the complete ancient production system is another matter entirely. And perhaps that's where the real achievement lies. Not in one mysterious tool, but in an enormous system of human organization. Number 8. Damascus steel. For centuries, blades associated with Damascus steel developed almost legendary reputations. They were famous for their distinctive patterns, their sharp edges, and their combination of hardness and toughness. Modern metallurgy is far more advanced than medieval metalworking. We can create steels that outperform ancient materials in many measurable ways. But recreating the exact properties and microstructure of historical Damascus or Wootz steels isn't as simple as copying the appearance. Ancient production depended on particular iron ores, carbon levels, heating cycles, cooling processes, and trace elements. Tiny differences in those ingredients could change the final material. Scientists have identified clues to how the famous patterns form, but an exact recipe that reproduces every aspect of the original material isn't something we can simply pull off from a manual. The irony is fascinating. Modern metallurgy can make better steel, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can recreate every historical steelmaking tradition exactly. Sometimes progress gives us something new, while leaving something old behind. Number 7. Greek fire. Now we come to one of history's most famous lost technologies, Greek fire. The Byzantine Empire used this mysterious incendiary weapon for centuries. Historical accounts describe a substance that could burn on water and be projected from ships. Its exact composition was kept secret, and eventually the knowledge disappeared. Modern researchers have proposed numerous possibilities: petroleum-based mixtures, resins, pitch, sulfur, and other combustible materials. We can certainly create substances capable of producing similar effects, but that's not the same thing as knowing exactly what Byzantine engineers used. The original descriptions are incomplete, the formula is gone, and the precise delivery system remains uncertain. So Greek fire isn't necessarily impossible for modern chemistry to reproduce. The mystery is more specific. Can we reproduce the exact historical substance, using the exact historical method, with the same performance? We simply don't know, and that's what makes it such an enduring mystery. Number 6. The acoustics of Epidaurus. Now imagine sitting in an ancient theater, without microphones, without speakers, without electronics, and hearing a performer from the stage all the way at the back. That's the experience associated with the ancient theater of Epidaurus in Greece. Built in the 14th century BCE, the theater could accommodate thousands of spectators. Its design creates remarkable acoustic conditions. The stepped seating, the shape of the theater, the surfaces on the stone, and the structures behind the stage all contributed to how sound travels. Researchers have even found that the limestone seating can influence which frequencies are reflected towards the audience. Of course, modern engineers can design extraordinary concert halls. With computers and sophisticated acoustic modeling, we can calculate exactly how sound should behave. But here's the interesting question. How much of the ancient builders' knowledge came from formal theory, and how much came from generations of experimentation? They may not have had our equations, but they had something else: experience. Number 5. Viking navigation. Now imagine sailing across the North Atlantic with no GPS, no compass as we know it, no satellite, no electronic instruments, just oceans stretching in every direction. The Vikings were capable of extraordinary voyages across the North Atlantic. One theory suggests that they may have used crystals, sometimes called sunstones, to help determine the position of the sun when clouds make direct observation difficult. Experiments have shown that certain crystals can reveal the direction of polarized light and potentially help locate the sun even when it isn't directly visible. But exactly how Viking navigators used such techniques remain uncertain. We have artifacts, we have historical accounts, we have experimental studies, but we don't have a complete instruction manual, and that's an important distinction. We can demonstrate pieces of the technology. What we can't prove is exactly how the complete navigation system worked in the hands of an experienced Viking sailor. Because navigation wasn't just a tool, it was knowledge built from years at sea. Number 4. Ancient roads. Today, we complain about potholes, but some ancient roads have survived for centuries, and in some cases, millennia. Roman roads are perhaps the most famous example. Their builders understood something fundamental. A road isn't just a surface, it's a system. Different layers of stone, careful drainage, proper slopes, materials chosen for local conditions, and foundations designed to handle repeated use. Modern engineering can certainly produce roads far more sophisticated than anything the Romans built. But sophistication doesn't always equal longevity. Ancient builders often designed infrastructure with very different priorities. They weren't necessarily trying to build as quickly or as cheaply as possible. They were building systems intended to last. And perhaps that's one of the lessons hidden inside these ancient roads. Sometimes the technology isn't what we've forgotten, it's the willingness to use it. Number 3. Ancient pigments. Walk into an Egyptian tomb and look at the walls. Thousands of years later, some of the colors can still appear remarkably vivid. Ancient painters used minerals such as cinnabar, azurite, and Egyptian blue, along with different binders and application techniques. Modern scientists can identify many of these materials. We can reproduce individual pigments, but reproducing the complete ancient process is complicated. The size of the pigment particles, the composition of the binder, the number of layers, the way the paint interacted with the surface, all of these factors can influence how the finished artwork aged. And that's the strange thing about ancient technology. Sometimes the secret isn't a single ingredient. It's a combination of dozens of small decisions that were once common knowledge, but were never written down. Number 2. Moving the megaliths. Now we come to one of the oldest engineering questions of all. How did ancient people move enormous stones? We actually know quite a lot about the physics. Some people propose ropes, sledges, levers, rollers, human labor. None of these required advanced technology, and experiments have demonstrated that surprisingly, some large stones can be moved using these relatively simple methods. But moving one giant stone isn't the same as constructing an entire monumental complex. Ancient builders had to coordinate workers, maintain tools, transport materials, deal with weather, plan around seasons, and repeat the process thousands of times. That's where the real mystery lies. How did they organize everything required to do it? We can reproduce some experiments. What is much harder to reproduce is the complete logistical machine that existed behind them. Number 1. The lost knowledge itself. And this may be the most important mystery of all. The greatest ancient technology we have lost may not be a material, or a weapon, or a machine. It may be knowledge itself. Imagine a craft passed from master to apprentice, not for 5 years, not for 10, but for generations. Each generation makes improvements. A technique becomes more efficient, a material is refined, a mistake is remembered, a successful method becomes tradition. Eventually, the knowledge becomes so deeply embedded in the culture that nobody needs to write down every detail. They simply know how to do it. So perhaps the real mystery isn't how ancient people accomplished the impossible. Perhaps they didn't. Perhaps they simply possessed knowledge that we no longer have. And that raises an intriguing question. How much ancient knowledge have we already lost without even realizing it? If you enjoy exploring ancient mysteries, lost technologies, archaeological discoveries, and forgotten civilizations, subscribe to Ancient Destinations for more journeys into the past.